Thank you. Thank you. You know, when the governor couldn't make it but showed up by video, I mean, that video was one of the finest statements of why we need to do this election I've heard in a long time. Now, everybody has heard me tell the story about this great organist that's gone all over the country, giving organ recitals, so we're going to do this a little different. I'm going to ask you, when I go this way, we'll all chime in with the punchline, because the organist showed up at the church. It's an old church, historic church, but the organ he was playing on wasn't even hooked up to the electricity. You had to pump the air to make the thing work. And so he stood up and said, "I will now play Mozart," sat down, hit the keys, nothing, not a sound. He looked over to make sure the man was over there to pump the air. He was there. He looked at him and looked back. "I will now play Mozart." He sat down, hit the keys, nothing, not a sound. He stared at the man. The man stared back. "I will now play Mozart." He hit the keys, nothing, not a sound. He went over to the man and said, "Sir, when you gonna start pumping the air?" He said, "I'll start pumping the air when you tell the audience that we will now play Mozart." Glenn and I are running. These campaigns wouldn't be anything if we didn't work together. That's why it's so important, as the governor said, that everybody work as hard as they can for the next 2 days to make sure that we get what we need. Now, one of the things that he mentioned was health care. Now, Glenn and I differed on our vote. Okay, that's behind us. Let me tell you what our choice is. Our choice is between somebody that's going to work to try to improve the bill and keep the bill, or somebody that's going to repeal it. If you want health care, you got to elect both of us to be there so we can protect and improve the health care bill. We worked 100 years to get health care, but it ain't even gone into effect, and the other side wants to get rid of it. We're working on crime prevention, and as you know, we lock up the higher portion of our population than any country on earth because we spend all our time waiting for young people to mess up, get caught, join a gang, and then we get into a bidding war as to how much time they're going to serve. Most countries lock up 50 to 200 people per 100,000. The Pew Research Center says anything over 500 is counterproductive. United States, 750 per 100,000 locked up today. In the African American community, 2,200. 10 states, 4,000. African American community in 10 states, 4,000. And if you just took that amount of money we're spending on prisons that is counterproductive, not all of it, just the part that's counterproductive, and aimed it at children that are at risk, 1/3 of the children that are at risk, you would be able to spend $10,000 per child every year with what these people are wasting for counterproductive incarceration. We need to get the children out of the cradle to prison pipeline and into the cradle to college and cradle to the workforce pipeline. We can obviously afford it because we're wasting it on counterproductive incarceration. One of the things that we need to do is invest in education. Let me just say, in my race, I support education. My opponent, the Republican, said he'd vote to abolish the U.S. Department of Education. That's part of the choice we have, but part of that is the budget. We are deep in the ditch in the budget because of reckless Republican policies. Policies that put us in the ditch in the deficit. They put us in the ditch in terms of jobs, worst job performance since the Great Depression, worst performance of the Dow in the Great Depression, which was in stark contrast to what the Democratic economic plan started in 1993 that we passed, eliminated the deficit. We were on the way to paying off the national debt by 2 years ago. No borrowing from Japan, no borrowing from Saudi Arabia, no borrowing money from China, paid off all of the national debt held by the public, but instead of that, they voted to double the national debt, worst job performance since the Great Depression, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average, rather than tripling under Clinton, was worse at the end than it started. Now, we have to do something about it. We have heard these people whine and complain to high heaven. They will go off on tirades, talk for 5 minutes about how bad the deficit is. And at the end of 5 minutes, people are starting to notice, when they got all that complaining, what is their plan? Nothing on the plan, and my opponent is just as bad. He will whine and complain about everything that you can do to fix something, but never come up with a constructive plan. All they do is complain, they attack your character. You remember what they did to John Kerry's military record. They talk about President Obama, they question where he's born, they question his religion, they call him elitist. So when they question my faith and my patriotism and my civil rights record, I'm in good company. I'm in good company. That's just how they campaign. And not the first suggestion as to what to do. And every time somebody comes up with one of those tough votes that it's going to take to cure these problems, then the chorus of complaints starts up again. Never one iota of help. When we passed the jobs bill, not a single vote. When we passed the budget in '93, not a single vote. When we passed health care, not a single vote. They will not do anything that takes the tough vote to help somebody, but they'll be the first to complain about the tough votes that we took. So we need to make sure that we come out to vote. The Tea Party is coming out. They're coming out to vote. They have won elections all over the country. They don't care whether you're heading to polls, they can still come out. Lisa Murkowski in Alaska was taking polls all the way up to election day. She was ahead by at least 10 points until they started counting the votes. Her people didn't show up, the Tea Party did, she lost. And they don't care what your qualifications are. Mike Castle in Delaware, a very popular former governor, legislator, Democrats in Delaware treated him like we treated John Warner. Half the time we wouldn't even nominate anybody against John Warner, and we'd ridden off the race. And he's running, and some lady who we now know is not a witch beat him badly. It wasn't close. So they've got one case, they won in Kentucky, in Nevada, in Colorado, all over the country. They've been winning races. And we need to make sure that doesn't happen here. There must be 500,000 people in Delaware who are going up to Mike Castle every day and say, if I'd known you're in trouble, I'd have voted. We don't want that to happen with Glenn Nye. We don't want that to happen in my race in the 3rd District. We don't want it to happen anywhere in Virginia. Come out and vote. Bring your friends. And if we do that, we can save health care, we can save education, we can do crime prevention, we can fix the budget, because we're not going to get any help from the other side. Thank you very much for all that you do.